Hi, I'm Joe,
And I'm Ricky.
and this is the first episode of the third season of Beer and Broadband. It should come out on April 6th, 2020. We got a little bit delayed. It was fun. World got weird. Things happened. My mic just flew up by my head. It got strange. But we had some good things happen too. So right now I'm going to drink some delicious, delicious coffee. Yep, because I made some coffee this morning. That's right. But I also did some brewing this morning, Ricky. I haven't had a chance to
hmm
tell you about that. So this morning I went in and I racked some wine over to bottles. So I bottled
Okay.
wine. I've got two young ladies. Do the foster parenting thing. Got two young ladies that are staying with me, and my wife and everything right now. And they helped me do like some of the moving around and some of the logistics of that. And they smelled it and they were like, "Oh my God, that smells so good." And then we did my sack mead that I was having some trouble with.
hmm
Put that we had to do some rescue work on. That's actually turned out really well. And then we did the other mead, the basic mead that I didn't put enough honey in to begin with. So um, we sweetened that up with a little bit more honey. And yeah, I mean, we just basically we did a little bit of everything from all the stuff that I've been brewing. And I then I ran up here and I've done this. So it's just been a brewing morning, basically, is
Well,
what I'm
there you
saying.
go.
So I
Those are
took
good
a
mornings.
to really enjoy my coffee when we first started this up because I really didn't have a chance to enjoy it. But now we're going to talk about something that I did brew that I felt like wasn't the best of my work, but I just kind of want to talk about it.
hmm
So, that cider you got there in your glass, Ricky.
Yeah.
Why don't you take a sip of it? And I'm going to talk about what this cider is. So, this is cider. It's like a basic cider recipe that every cider maker makes to begin with. I think it's about 6.9 ABV. I made it. My wife made labels that say Bradley Brew Works on them. So, they're cider, network cider, Mott's. But I made this on February 7th. I bottled it on February 7th, 2020. I probably made it at the beginning of January. I'd have to look at my brew sheet to be sure. I'll do that while we're talking.
hmm
But I'm wondering because I have certain opinions about it. What do you think about it, Ricky?
So it's definitely got some kind of phenols to it. There's some roughness. I know you've used a lot of yeast. Is this one of the ones that use like I think the Fleshman's? You said like that
Uh,
bread yeast.
yeah, this one was the bread yeast that I used.
Gotcha. Yeah, so you can definitely taste that yeast was probably starting to struggle a little bit, or really it's just not specialized yeast. So this might just be how um, something through that's going to taste. It's going to have some off flavors. The thing outside of that, though, not too bad. It's very dry, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. And it's a bit sour, which that's probably just from the malt. Because that's just like we eat up all the sugar from the apple juice, but we don't eat up the acid. So if they're
Mhm.
using a particularly acidic apple juice, I can see that come through.
Yeah, I agree with all that. So I started it on January 14th of 2020.
hmm
And I've just kind of let it sit in my fridge until now. I didn't want to keep it for like a year to let it get rid of a lot of those esters and things like that are off
Yeah,
gas in it.
yeah. And at this ABV, you wouldn't want to. If you
Yeah,
try and let it sit too long, it'll just start to develop other issues.
exactly. So I didn't want to have any of those problems. So this just ended up being just kind of a fun little experiment. But I made it with some bread yeast. Like you said, it's really super clear for something I made with some bread yeast. I had to rack it like 2 times to get it
hmm
as clear as it is, but it ended up being. I felt like it ended up being kind of a good first attempt at cider by myself. You know,
Yeah,
it's kind of
yeah.
a
And it's
funny.
really not that bad. This with a different yeast and either a little bit of sweetness to offset some of the sour, or just like a commercial acid blend that would like mellow out a lot of the rough notes on it. It's
Yeah,
really not bad. for like an early shot.
If you take it and you mix it with some apple juice, it makes it perfect.
Yeah, I can see that. There's a little bit of sweetness to cut that edge would make it a lot smoother.
Yeah, exactly. So if anybody's thinking about getting into brewing, making cider is a really fun first step. And if you make bread, you get some Fleischmann's bread yeast, and just throw like a tablespoon in. Or it's a teaspoon. It's either a teaspoon or a tablespoon. I forget which one. It's a teaspoon. You throw a teaspoon in per gallon. And I made 2 gallons of this, and it ended up being all right. Now I made another one that ended up being a like apple wine because it was over that 7% ABV for it to be technically classified as cider, but it's basically the same thing as a cider. It just had a lot more sugar and ate a lot more of the sugars that were available from the apples. And that one I made with Red Star champagne yeast, I think. I made that one with Red Star champagne yeast, and it came out to almost 10%. It was like 9.9% ABV. And that one was delicious. Unfortunately, I don't have any more. Otherwise, we would have talked about that like next time on the podcast. But so funny story. I'm sitting there yesterday. I go to like check some of my bottles, and one of the caps had popped off. So there was a little bit of pressure there. It popped one of the caps off. I checked it last night, so I knew it hadn't been like it's somewhere during the night it had popped one off. I check it and I'm like, okay, it still smells good. I take a little sip, it still tastes good. And so then I check all my other caps on all my other bottles, and I'm like, well, I'll just drink this one. I had one other bottle left, and I was thinking like, well, darn, I guess I could save this. And then I picked that other bottle up, and it like the cap burst out.
Oh yeah.
It didn't shoot. It didn't do like the other thing where it shot up in the air and everything. But because it like burst out, it just like slipped out of my hand, and I just got cider all over the floor. It was just a big floor of cider. It was terrible.
Yeah, if you have one of them pop a cap after you've bottled, they're almost all going to do that because they've all got the same like fluid in them. So it probably had some fermentation still going on there.
Well, actually, I don't think that was the case. So we get morning sun on the area where I was keeping those things in the winter or in the spring. I'm sorry, and all of the things, and some of them went completely dry. All of the things that I have there, so I have some like red wine and stuff like that. All of them were under pressure, and I think it was just from the light hitting it, and they weren't hitting the bottles, but it was like warming up the little container that they were all in. And so it was the difference in temperature, I think, that caused that, because all of them had that pressure on them, and some of them were they were like 990, for their gravity, so they were completely
That's very interesting. I'm pretty surprised to hear that because I mean, think about that in like a commercial setting. Like imagine you bought like a bottle of Dragon's milk or something. You're saying like that stuff gets transported in, they're kept in like a refrigeration section essentially. Like we're saying that's going from 50 degrees. So it's not like true refrigeration. It's not like getting it super, super cold. But then if you like put it out on your counter, it would pop off. I wonder if that was just like the caps didn't have a good seal or something. They should be able to hold a pretty serious amount of pressure.
They're not. They're just corks that have like a.
Okay.
It's just like the
one I was drinking right now. Yeah, no. Yeah, the one I'm drinking right now, it had like the cap on it. So just in my head, I was like, oh yeah, we clamped a metal cap on it. That's some serious pressure.
No,
but it's just one of those cork fits. Yeah, those reusable corks aren't super, super tight. So okay, I can see that.
Yeah, exactly. It's so that was the situation. None of it went bad. I smelled all of it. I tasted a little bit of one. I just like recorked all of it. But yeah. So that brings us so we just talked about brewing over winter, like what I did, and you did some brewing too.
I did, yeah.
So tell me a little bit about that.
So I made a strawberry apple wine. I used, I think, White House apple juice as my base, 6 gallons of that. And then I bought one of these like commercial wine bases for strawberry wine. And it's not straight strawberry juice; it's like a blend because like strawberry itself is very very sour. So if you had like just strawberry like concentrate, it would just be too acidic. But I think it's a mix of like apple, strawberry, and pear to keep it mellow. I put in it's like a gallon container. Put in a half gallon there to get kind of close to the top of my fermenter. Let that go. It reached about 10-11%, and then swapped it over, back sweetened with the rest of it. It was real nice because I was doing it kind of near the end of winter, so I got to cold crash it on like the last real freeze of the year. So I left it outside for 2 days while it was cold enough to get like real down there. It was like in the 20s overnight. So I didn't have to do multiple racks, didn't even have to do a secondary. It was just so clear from getting that cold for a couple days. I was able to just boom, throw it over, back sweeten and bottle.
So this wasn't my favorite thing that we made this between the two of us that we've made this winter.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like my second favorite thing that we made. And I am looking forward to having some more of it. You gave me what, like a gallon of it, and
Yeah, I think
I
we'd already
drank
drank
that
some
stuff.
of it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
but I knocked that stuff back. It was really good.
it was. And there's nothing special went into it. It's kind of just an experiment to see how these like commercial wine bases would do. You know, there was no extra seasoning in secondary, no spices, no like acid or tannins added, nothing to give it really any more flavor than just apple alcohol and some wine base. And it was really nice. I mean, I've been playing around with taking the already done wine and putting some extra flavors into it, like letting just like a glass at a time, get like a little bit of cinnamon or something, trying to see what flavor profiles work with it well. And I think when I nail that down, it will be real nice on the next run when it'll get to kind of like sit for maybe a month and pick up some extra flavors.
Yeah, I think that one definitely would serve from like maybe some tea or something like I don't know, like something that gives it more of a mouth feel.
Yeah,
Um,
I've been playing around with some citrus teas, and those are really nice. I get a little bit conflicted because they add a whole bunch of really nice secondary flavors, but I haven't found one yet that I think benefits the primary flavor. So like you get tons of great, okay, aftertaste, all like when you breathe on it, really good like lingering flavors, but the initial flavor on your tongue suffers a little bit. So I'm trying to find a way around that.
well, I think I think if you add, so I've been doing some experiments with like raisins and using like a little bit of black tea in secondary and things like that. And I think if you and primary, and there is a difference between the two. I've learned that recently. Um, And I think if you added a little bit of something to give it some mouthfeel in primary, but then, like did a little something else in secondary, I think it would like hit that sweet spot with it. We probably, if we end up ever, ever making like this a real recipe, we probably shouldn't say what it is but I don't care. Not really. But yeah, man, I mean, like that stuff is good. It's really, really, really good. And what yeast did you use for that? Was it
It was
lava?
Lavin 1118.
Yeah. So I'm really liking that stuff. And that brings me to our next topic, talking about bad yeast. Um, so we got some Red Star after right after we finished up in fall. I got like a big pack of Red Star. We're going to start this like brew cycle where we were really going through. And things got a little bit weird in the world, which we'll talk about next. But basically, the first couple of batches that we did with that, they didn't turn out right. They were just like real weird and off. There was nothing like we had to throw one of them out, didn't we? Yeah, we threw one of
Yeah.
my ciders out. 5 gallons of cider just gone. I could be drinking that right now. I'm so sad about it. But because it only got to like what, like 4%, and it was Red Star champagne yeast.
Yeah, it was like 4.4. It was ridiculous.
Yeah. So we did that. We weren't happy with it. We had 2 brews. One of the Red Star champagnes that I bought that went off bad was from from the brew shop, and the other one was from Amazon. So like I don't know why it just had two bad runs of it, but I'm beginning to think that we were a little impatient, and this is why. So the sack mead that I made,
Mm-hmm.
that that went to 10%. I'm not sure that it's completely done yet, but I moved it over to a secondary container to get it off of its lease because it's been on there for almost 3 months, no, 2 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was just like, I'm just going to take it off because I don't want to let it sit there for another 2 or 3. But I use in the sack mead, I use the Red Star champagne yeast too. And we threw some more of the other yeast in it, the bread yeast, right? And so that one has a delicious, because it was overly sickly sweet. It was like what um, the second time we tried it, it was at like 6% ABV or something like that.
Yeah, somewhere around there.
Yeah, and then the third time I tested it in primary, it had gotten up to 9.1. So I was like, okay, this is okay. It went even further. It's gone to like 1.004. Or I'm sorry, it's gone to um, let me back up. It was at 7.35, and then in a month it moved to 9.7 ABV. So I think that Red Stern champagne yeast just takes a while to get done. Because you remember that YouTube video for
Yeah, I mean,
man-made mead?
I will admit that the batch you have might be taking longer, but it should, under normal circumstances, never take that long. Because one of the things we did was I took one of your packets, you got like a 16 pack of it,
Yep.
took it back to my place, and ran through the apple wine that I normally make with that yeast. Like I have the same recipe I've made half a dozen times. And it didn't take off very quickly. I let it sit for a week or two, took the measurements. It had gone almost nowhere. So like maybe with whatever's wrong with it, if you leave it long enough, it'll catch up. But I've made probably 60, 70 batches of various ciders and wines and meads. I've never had any of them take longer than 3 weeks, no matter what the
So
quantity was.
I understand that, but I was just saying maybe for this particular thing it took longer
Yeah, I
because
could
it didn't
definitely
take off.
see. Yeah, I could definitely see whatever is wrong with it. It's just slowing down its reproduction. Maybe it's taking a lot longer. You can sometimes salvage stuff by like letting it sit long enough.
Well, so let me go back to the first mead that I made that just had like it wasn't quite enough honey, so it was going to end up not tasting right. I also tested that today with the same yeast. It went from 4.2% in a month. It went to 12.7% ABV. And the target that I had for it was 12 because that's all the sugar I put. But I mean, I put like there's a little bit more sugar, but I was like, yeah, it shouldn't ferment out all this sugar because it's honey, right? It went a little bit further. I ended up having to add more honey when I racked it over today for that. So it was just very interesting. Yeast that I thought was bad. I just need to have some more patience with it, especially with mead. I think with the ciders that we were doing, I mean, there's definitely something weird with that yeast, but it's not bad. It's just off, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably some nomenclature there, like when do you call it bad versus just special. But yeah, there's definitely something going on with it that.
What kind of special do you mean there, Ricky?
Well, no, I mean like you're gonna have to take extra care of it because there's something not right with it. It's not bad. You can get around it. Just like if you ever cook with spices that are a little bit old. They don't taste as good. They're not fresh, but you can still cook with them. You just need to know, hey, I need to put like a little bit extra in. Like
So
it's that style of situation.
let's talk about all the weird stuff that happened over since we left. There was this. So I'm I don't know what all happened, but I'm not really that concerned about you know somebody like demonetizing me or anything like that. But COVID-19, basically coronavirus.
Mm-hmm.
It happened since we last talked.
Yeah.
Things have gotten a little bit strange. you know, the world, like everything's shut down. Everybody's supposed to be quarantined, all that stuff. And it's not really funny stuff, but that's made it more important for me to brew. And you know, my we've alluded to kind of what we do in our we're
Mm-hmm.
we're DevOps network engineers. I'm actually like an architect, and everything that we do is basically to allow people to work from home. We specialize in VPN stuff, and we have been like hitting it lately. Especially me. Like my job has very busy lately, and just like over the last like month and a half, things have gotten crazy, especially here in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
But it was crazy like that before. Has that like incentivized you to like brew more or do anything, Ricky? I know it has me.
I'll admit, not quite yet. I made a huge batch before it goes through. I don't generally make too many like 2 gallon like test batches anymore, just because of the space I have available to me. But like we're starting to get down to like the last gallon of that strawberry wine. All the like online retailers are still open since you're still allowed to like ship things. You just can't have people in your businesses. So yeah, I'm probably at some point soon going to run out to Costco, and they sell an apple juice that I've been drinking. We bought it for my kid, but I've been stealing some of it. Really good. So I'm thinking about trying to make some apple wine with that. It'll probably still be strawberry wine, or maybe one of their other like concentrates. But there'll probably be another 6 gallon batch of something I'm doing done within the next month or two.
Well, I made 5 gallons of beer. I made a stout. So, of course I did, right? Because I love
Hmm.
stouts. But we're gonna see how that one ends up being. Probably in the fall. I'll probably I don't know if it's done before one of our next episodes, and I can get it over to you. Then we'll try it. But Ricky and I, we're not face to face right now. We didn't break quarantine. We are doing this over la internet. The
Hmm.
internets, so to speak. Um, so we figured out a way to record. I mean, of course, that technology's out there, and we're tech people, but we figured out how to record and make this work. So this is probably the next year is going to be all about us recording, um, you know, this way. And so we may have some off episodes. We may do more than our 20 episodes that we do in a year or so. We'll see. We'll see how it turns out. But even when we get back face to face, this may be our recording way. I kind of like this better. It's a better setup, I think, for
Yeah, it is
recording.
kind of nice.
Yeah.
As long as the audio is still good when we actually go back to edit it, it's pretty comfy.
Yeah, well, I've played around with it enough that the audio seems like it's pretty good. So I'm doing this from my armchair, which anything I can do from my armchair is great. So, um, you got anything else you want to say about the? Well, I do have one more thing that I wanted to say. Since we became so important, I've kind of in a former life I used to be a guy, and I think I've mentioned this before. Like I did law enforcement and stuff like that, and like that job was important because what I did like determined if people lived or died and things like that, and there was a lot of like pressure to like perform high. The job that we do now, I've always kind of taken the attitude that it's not that big of a deal, but in this situation, it actually kind of became a big deal, because if we didn't work and do a good job, then people couldn't work, right?
Yeah.
And um, then my friends that I have at work and some other people that I know, they wouldn't be able to work, and they would go without food, and that's kind of sad. So don't want that to happen, right? So
Yeah, working from home has become pretty important right now, especially kind of like in the early stages of these quarantines where we're not really sure what the next couple months are going to look like.
yeah, absolutely. And I fully expect for us not to be out of quarantine until like September, August, somewhere around there. I know you and I talked about this the other day, and how the summer months may affect it differently, and we may be able to get out of quarantine sooner. But yeah, I feel like I have a lot of responsibility on me again. So I went right back into, got to make sure, got to be responsible, got to be dependable, got to make sure everybody's taken care of, all that stuff mode. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna see how much stress I'm in. I might in June. I may be like taking like a month-long vacation.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see it happening before then. I might take a vacation in May, but I'm probably gonna have to take some time off. Otherwise, I'm gonna have a heart attack.
Yeah, that's how it goes.
Well, do you have anything else you want to say about that?
I guess just since this is our first episode where we're like in the beginning of Corona, and we're gonna be recording these in batches. Does everybody stay safe? Just don't do anything stupid. You know, nothing's that important. Get your stuff online if you can. Go out as little as you can. If you're essential, God bless you.
Yeah, wear a face mask. Thank
Mm-hmm.
you, everybody, like law enforcement, firefighters, ambulance, medical workers, hospital nurses, doctors, the cleaning staff is so important. We have friends. We have one of our close friends works at a grocery store. One of the people we play D&D with. Thank you for doing that job. You're super important. Good shout out, Ricky. I should have said that. Good job, man.
I'll take it. I'll take my praise where I can get it.
All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to our first episode of the season back. Hopefully we'll be able to knock out 10 episodes for you this at least in spring, and then we'll be back in fall with another 10. So we'll catch you next time, and have a good one.